Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Jason Chain. This is the Truth Be Told podcast, episode 1, first ever. Welcome. Glad you're here with us. It's a special day. Here today with us, we have a good friend of mine, somebody I've known for almost 15 years now, and I've seen amazing things happen in his life. Seen the genesis from one place to another within himself. And I'm very excited that he's going to be able to share the honest truth with you guys about his life. And let's have a conversation.
Let's have it, man. Thanks for having me, Jason. You know, man, I've been down here with you for a couple days, and every time I spend some time with you, which is nearly not enough through these years that we've known each other. But man, like, you inspire me to take some deep looks at myself and to like question things that I do. Inspire me to be a better person and to just if you know, in any area where I'm off the beam, is to journey back on the beam in any area of my life. Like just being around you and watching how you live inspires that. So man, thank you. I love you, brother, and I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to do this. You know, like, I love having conversations. You're like the Jordan Peterson of addiction. I swear to God. Swear to God.
Well, having you here is special because you're the one that spurred me to even begin this process of getting out there, speaking. I've always wanted to do it, but never really had the push to do it, and you provided that, so thank you.
Yeah, man, I just know people need to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of people out here struggling, not just with addiction, but just struggling with life. As you've said, their roadmap to life seems to be balled up in the glove box somewhere underneath a bunch of napkins, mustard packets, you know? So, you know, there's a lot of people out here struggling that can benefit from what you have to say. So, you know, gotta get to the people.
So I agree 100%. And I think about, I've known you in your adulthood, and I have stories that I've heard from earlier and along the way, but I kind of want to have an idea of a sense as to the environment you grew up in, what it was like, where it was, and how you felt in that body as a young kid growing up and what that was like. So where were you born? Where were you raised? What's your family situation?
I was raised in Southern Virginia, which is completely different than Northern Virginia. I was right above the North Carolina line. It was agriculture. It was forestry. Every male in my family was either a farmer or a sawmiller or logger. I grew up around a lot of rough men, a lot of hard men, heavy drinkers, smokers, storytellers. I grew up, like I said, in a rural area. I was related to just about everyone on my road. We had a family cemetery, goes back a couple hundred years, just right down the road from me. So the roots run deep there. But as a child, you know, I just felt, I'm a sensitive guy, man, and I was a sensitive kid. I picked up on emotions, up on other people's emotions. I stuttered from the time I could talk until I was 8 years old. So right out of the gate, first day of school, first time interacting with people, any memory that I have of that was feeling different. And like, why can everyone else talk and why I can't? No matter how hard I tried to carry on a conversation and to speak, struggled. So kids being kids, I went to school or were hanging out with cousins, anyone, early age, it was tough on the self-esteem. So, you know, at an early age, my earliest memories are of, I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere, and I wasn't comfortable. And if I could have just, when I was around people, could have just evaporated, I would have. I loved being in the woods by myself at an early age, playing Army, playing war, grew up across from a military base, and I was fascinated by the military and Army history. And I knew that when I was in the woods, I had a great time, man. I had a wild imagination. I had trenches. I had foxholes. I had, you know, fence posts and artillery pieces. I mean, I had full-on wars going on with myself. I always won.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just knew that I could have peace there. woods. I didn't have to worry about it. Every time I went up to somebody when I was a little kid, and I mean, I'm talking at 8 years old, my mom sent me to a speech therapist and straightened this out, right? I'll still stumble on a word, but it was like a miracle worker. This damage was done to the self-esteem. But that was at 8 years old where that happened. So, that 5 to 8 was a rough time.
What was her name? Speech therapist.
Debbie.
Debbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debbie Yancey.
Big thank you there, huh?
I love that woman. She's passed now. She was just a wonderful, wonderful woman. I just remember going to her house a couple afternoons a week, and I don't even remember what she did to me. I have no idea, but it worked.
Did you feel hopeful along the way of it, or did it just kind of hit like a...
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Mom was like, "You going here?" I'm like, well, "Okay." And I followed directions. I wasn't a troublemaker as a child. I wasn't a big rebel.
Yeah.
That came later, but I just said, okay. And I remember my sister, I was walking down the hall one night, and it had to have been a traumatic event because I remember it crystal clear. I had on pajamas that were, way too small for me. I was walking down the hall into the second den, right around the corner into the kitchen, and I heard my sister asking my mama. She was a little older than me. "What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Why does he stutter like that? Why's he got to talk like that? Like, what's the matter with him?" I remember that.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff in my youth that I don't remember. Probably a lot of great things, great memories with my grandpa, my grandma, like all of my family and friends, and probably had fascinating experiences. I remember that.
What do you feel like the message that you internalized from that would be?
I'm messed up. I'm faulty. Like I'm not right. I'm not okay. Like something's inherently wrong with me.
You left there feeling that way.
Oh, yeah.
Did you already feel that way inside and it just kind of stamped it home?
Yeah, I didn't confront them. I didn't go in and say, "Why are you saying that?" I just said, I shrunk. Like I shrunk. Turned and walked away. They never knew I was in. They never knew that I heard that.
They know to this day?
No, not unless they watch his podcast, which my mama has Alzheimer's, so she won't remember it, but they never knew.
And it's a totally natural thing to do, to talk to your family. So, wow, big.
Mm-hmm.
Do the time in the field, the time where you were alone and out there, like what was the most, I guess, the feeling of what was most attractive about being out in the woods?
Because I was pretending to be something other than what I was. Someone other than me. I was a soldier. I was in war. I was in combat, and I was winning. I was someone. And just explaining this to you right now, I've never shared this. So it's really just coming out, that it's really just starting to make sense. It wasn't just a kid playing Army. It was, but there was deeper stuff to it. Is that I was somebody. I was a hero. I was a victor. I was a badass with that tobacco stick. That tobacco stick was my bazooka. That tobacco stick was my M60. That tobacco stick was my sword. And better look out.
Yeah. I remember as a kid playing like a soldier, and I always the way that I did it, I said we're playing like we're the men. And I would have a girlfriend. It would be the whatever Heather Locklear, Morgan Fairchild, the most beautiful woman of the time, when I was a kid. And then we'd pick our cars, which would be Lamborghini. We'd imagine those kind of things as kids.
Right.
It was always like this fantastic life that you're going to have when you're an adult. And I definitely, that imagination is so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel today, I don't know if we've moved so far away from that, but that freedom of exploration, very powerful.
Yeah.
But I identify with the aloneness and the loneliness. I was a firstborn child and spent the first 6 years of my life just by myself, basically. Parents were working, so I identify with that. What do you feel like as childhood, as you started to age, like who were the people that you really felt close to, and what were the things that, who was the where you felt the warmth, where you felt the love? Where did you go for comfort? Where did you go for?
My grandma. They lived right across the field from us.
Yeah.
And, my dad, which my dad was a drinker. Dad was a heavy drinker. And, he drank every evening. I can remember, this is back in the day, I'd be in the truck with him going down the wherever, and he'd have a mixed drink. We'd come to a road check, some country roads. He'd hand me his cup, say, here, hold this. I'm standing up in the seat, no seat belt or anything. I really sought my dad's approval and connection with Dad, and then he loved me. He couldn't really say it, but he showed it. Well, really, it was my grandma, my grandpa, and later on my cousins. Once I got a 3-wheeler when I was 10, so that made me mobile, and so then I had the 3-wheeler trails and all down to my cousins. I'd leave in the morning and not come home till after dark. So, it was my cousins, and man, they'd give me hell, but I knew they loved me. I knew that, they would tease me, and I never teased back. I didn't feel like I had that gift of gab. I didn't have I'm not who I am today. I wasn't who I am today. And they give me hell, but they were my boys. They were my cousins.
So you felt love behind it.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt in the same way.
No.
Where were you? Did you excel in any part of your life at that point? Were you starting to kind of come into your own? Or was it still trying to find yourself and not really know your place?
Played baseball, Little League, was a good fielder, couldn't hit worth a shit, and was always self-conscious around that, and always felt like I let my dad down when he's behind the dugout, that I couldn't hit the ball.
Oh, man, the fear.
Yeah.
Being in that batter's box, right, and knowing you coming up. Did the world go silent for you? Did the anxiety of, I don't want to let anybody down?
It's almost like I went up to the bat, to the box, saying I'm not gonna hit the ball. There's a lot of negative self-talk going on between that dugout to the batter's box. Like, well, let me just get this shit over with.
Where'd they put you in the lineup?
I don't even remember. It wasn't number 1. I'll tell you that.
Probably wasn't 4 either.
Nope, wasn't. Yeah. It was way on down there.
Yeah.
Well, and then I was a small guy too. Like I'm short. I'm 5'7" on a good day when I do my stretches. But I was a small guy, man. I was a small guy. But I got along with my teammates. But as we're talking about this, like I can go back to those moments. And now looking at them from a different perspective is that, and I didn't fit in there. I didn't feel like I fit at all. At all.
Like playing the sports, doing the things that everybody else was doing. It's like.
Yeah. I was glad to get the hot dog and the grape soda after the game if we won. And I enjoyed the ride home. I enjoyed playing ball with my dad. But the games itself, and I enjoyed the practices. But the games themselves brought on a sense of anxiety that I didn't experience really except there.
I feel that's very common, but most of us don't talk about it because it's not really the narrative of being a strong man, that one that's not scared, that thinks whatever happens, happens. That feeling of fear that shoots through you when you just want to succeed, but that it's you don't believe it's actually possible.
Right. And I'm looking at other guys or young boys that were hitting the ball, and I could field the ball. I played second base, but I'd look at them and be like, "There's no way I'll be as good as them."
And you were already disqualifying yourself.
Absolutely, right out of the gate before it even got started, because it was easier.
What do you mean when you say it was easier?
It was easier to just wave the flag, instead of, because, man, dude, I guess it's like if I already just surrendered to it, I don't have to worry about the letdown when if I build my expectations too high on myself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
No?
Yeah. How long you think you've carried that belief system? Did that carry on further into life?
Dude, it still crops up. Nowhere near like it was, and I got a lot of work done around that. Sobriety helped tremendously with that and those belief systems. But definitely, look, man, from the time I was 8 until I was 10, I had this little like little peace period. Nothing really was happening. You know, I discovered the Playboy books in the tobacco barn down at where I was working in tobacco. But I always wanted to be someone who was older than me. I was never comfortable being me. I always wanted to, you know, I was pretty much the youngest on my road, and there was a lot of tobacco farming, and I'd go out and work in the tobacco fields with the folks. And, you know, I've always wanted to be older and more advanced and more mature than what I was. But, shit, I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, let's say you said from 8 to 10,
Oh.
how much happened? So obviously, I guess 10 is a turning point.
Yeah, 10, I got molested. And, like, I remember, like, I'm sure I had a lot of experiences, wonderful experiences and moments, but I remember vividly walking down the hall that next morning at 10 years old, telling myself, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck? I mean, I remember where I was in the hallway, where my foot was stepping at the moment I was going, man, what the fuck? The fuck just happened? And there's no way I'll ever tell anyone this. There's no way this has to go to my grave. Like, I'm really fucked up. I'm damaged. No one will ever know. Ever know. So, like, how could I let this happen? So, you know, that really, I made an agreement with myself that a real man would not let this happen. Now, realizing I was, you know, only 10 years old, but a real man wouldn't let this happen. So I got to be a man. Started making these agreements with myself of what I thought a real man was and what they did. So I almost immediately became a stage character rather than who I really was.
What did that stage character, what was the biggest piece of that stage character? What did that stage character have that the one before that event didn't have?
My imagination shut it down. I used to write stories, and I was a good writer. Even at a young age, I was a good writer, and with that imagination, create stories that my mama still has today. I wrote a song when I was just a little chap. My media company is named after that song now, and I shut all that down. Like, I shut all that down. Real men don't do that. Real men shoot guns. Real men get dirty and muddy and fight, chase women, and rabble rouse.
So was there something in you that told you, had you had those qualities, that wouldn't have happened?
Yeah. I could have defended myself better, or they wouldn't have even tried.
Yeah, you would have put off an energy that would have been.
They leave me to shit alone.
So you told yourself, if I'm hearing this right, that as you are, it's not good enough or it's not enough. You're going to have to be something different to survive in the world.
Yeah.
Than who you are.
Yeah.
Who you are isn't okay.
Which led into my occupation. Every male in my family was in the logging business. So right out of high school, I went to the logging business. My dad, and that's what real man did. I was just, man, I never really felt like I fit in. Like, even in the woods, trying to be all that, I didn't feel like I fit with the crew. I wanted to demand a certain respect that I hadn't earned yet. I felt like, man, they're just looking at me as the boss's son. They're just being nice to me because they have to. They're just doing these things because they have to. Even then. But I never got in trouble as a teenager. Never. I didn't like going to parties and things like that. I didn't like big crowds. Never did. I remember, man, do you ever have these feelings where you know something's coming, but you don't know what it is, but you get this really strong movement within you to not do something? Like, yes. To not, and there's no really explanation for it at the time when you're feeling this feeling, but then you do it anyway and something happens. Like, then you're like, God, man, I should have listened to my gut. As I had this girlfriend by this point, and we were riding around town. Back in the day, man, people used to ride around town. People used to hang out at the dairy freezers and stuff. They didn't have the phones and all. And these Marines at the military base, when they were done with their training for the day or a few days or a week in the field, they'd bring them uptown in buses and drop them off, and they just roam the streets. You know, Marines.
Yeah.
I'm 16, and man, these Marines hadn't seen girls in a week, you know, or 2 weeks, and they're Marines. They got their buddies with them, and they're hollering at our girls, and man, that's disrespect. Don't think I'm a man, right? So I made this agreement that I was never going to back down from anybody, and you know, I wasn't a trained killer.
Right.
I played one in the woods with a tobacco stick, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And they hollered at my girlfriend, and I circled back around. I said, "To hell with that," and I got in a fight with them. You know, I knew that when she wanted to ride uptown that night, something in my gut was screaming at me, "Don't go, don't." And I never felt that before. Like whenever we wanted to ride around town and go out, but something was screaming at me in my gut, "Don't go anywhere, stay put." You know, I got my ass kicked, and they took it easy on me. You know, I was just a teenager. They could have killed me, but I don't even know. That was impactful in my life. I'll always remember that night too.
What did you tell yourself to override your gut? What was it? Was it making her happy? Was it
making her happy?
That's what she wanted.
Yep. And if, you know, I wanted to stay home, then, you know, I'm no fun. With other people, it'll be more fun. I would lose her.
That was the fear behind it.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And ultimately, what's the fear behind that?
Being alone.
Being alone. It's a core fear. That was around 15, 16? You said 16?
Mm.
So at that point, had you started drinking, or did that come later, started smoking marijuana?
I smoked weed at 12 years old with my cousins. And, you know.
These are older cousins, I take it. Yeah.
I mean, a year older than me.
Yeah.
3 years older than me. 5 years older than me.
You said you were the youngest.
Yeah,
on
I was
the
the
road,
youngest.
So
Yeah.
They're
Like,
a little older.
you know, my cousin Charles is a year older than me. I got my other cousin Robbie, he's 3 years older than me, and we all had three-wheelers. But we were sitting at my grandparents' Christmas tree farm, and they fired up a joint, and I hit it, and it did exactly what it was designed to do. But what I didn't realize is I felt, as you speak of, I felt freedom. I felt free. First time I felt free, and I wanted to do more of that, and I felt connected to my cousins were laughing with me. They weren't laughing at me. They weren't laughing at how I talked. They weren't, which, you know, they did, and they're my cousins, right? Gave me shit all the time. The fascinating thing is now I have a better voice than they do. So, you know,
it's the great leveler, right?
Yeah.
You became like a peer rather than younger cousin.
Yeah. They laughed with me.
Start to develop that voice.
Yeah.
The voice of camaraderie.
Yeah.
The community.
It's like I came out of my shell. It's like I just exposed myself to the world. Confidence. What it felt like.
What do you feel like once that happened for you and you've had that feeling, that recognition of that camaraderie, what did you tell yourself caused it?
I couldn't process that at the time.
Did it feel like you had to do the drug to make that happen?
Yeah. Not the actual getting high part to feel the camaraderie, the engaging in the process of it. Being willing to be that rebel, to do that secretive thing with them. I was part of the club at that point. We had secrets now. We had a pact. We were a crew at that point. I was part of the crew.
It's a deep, deep wanting and longing to have.
To be a part of a crew.
And at this point, you're in high school and you're moving towards life. Are you anticipating like there's going to be college in the future? Are you going to work for the family business? Like, how did you see things playing out for you? You going to marry the local girl? You going to go out and branch out and move to New York City? Like, what did you have like plans, or were you just kind of living living day to day?
And I wanted to fly Apache helicopters. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And then girls came into the mix. And I wasn't a big drinker at that time, and I wasn't smoking weed every day. No, but I got this girlfriend, and I didn't want to leave her. And you had to know a lot of math to be a helicopter pilot, and I didn't like math. I still don't like math, but I had a lot of better things I wanted to do than go to school. My dad had told me that I wasn't going to work for the family business until I had a 4-year degree. Like, man, I don't do that. I would rather anything than go to college.
Your dad go to college?
No, he didn't. He
What
barely
do you think
graduated.
that represented to him? Why he wanted you to do that? What was it? Because he wanted to show workers that you had like done something to earn it? Was it he wanted you to have a sense of it? What do you think his driving force for wanting you to go to college, or was it just to have an experience he never had?
My dad was an interesting fella. He grew up in the woods, sawmills. He got hit by a tree when he was 16 years old. He got a TBI from that. And I think that's what later developed into hydrocephalus, where it's the brain, the fluid in the brain. But he hated the woods. He hated everything. The more I got to know him later in life, he was a sad, sad man. And I don't think that he wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I think that he related like working in the woods and working for the family as his experience was working with dad and working with the family. And I think part of it was he wanted me to be better than how he was. Every father wants that. I want that for my sons. I want them to way outshine me, like by 20x,
Yeah.
But he didn't want me in the woods. He hated it. He said, he's a funny guy too. He passed in January, but he said, logging's the only thing that you can be stupid and still fairly make a living at it. And when he would talk, he's like, man, anybody that works in the woods, if they had any other sense, they'd be doing something different. So, and that's not a stab at any other loggers. That was just his take. I mean, he was a good logger. He was a good businessman.
Do you think your dad understood the sensitive person that you were for?
No, but my grandpa did. My mom's dad did. 'Cause my dad would be hard on me. My mom's father, who was he was an interesting cat.
What was his name?
Fred Saul. He was lieutenant colonel, went in as a private and came out a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Had dealings with the mob, president of Freezer Queen, hired the mob to make sure his shit got on the front shelves. And I mean, he did some stuff, man. He's like Forrest Gump running around here, man, but just a highly intelligent, gifted speaker, very confident.
Your mom's dad?
Yeah. And he told, I don't remember this. My mom told me. He's like, he told my dad, he said, you gotta understand this boy is sensitive. And I don't mean sensitive as in like timid, weak, but like I'll cry on you in a second. Yeah. Like I don't even know why now, but I can tear up here right now talking about this. And he's like, you gotta treat him a little differently.
What comes to me when you talk about your father and grandfather, one, it's a tight family. I understand that small town, but all my grandparents lived in the same town that I did, so we had that as my parents and me, 3 generations. Would eventually become 4 generations, 5 generations, all living in that town. But when I think about your dad saying you got to go to 4-year university, graduate from 4-year university, come work for the family business, I almost think he wanted you to not come back and to give you an option for you to go broaden your horizons and go get out of there and say like, oh man, I don't want to.
Yeah. I think that's what it was in his mind. But staying at Beach Week after graduation about 2 weeks longer than I was supposed to, he figured that wasn't going to happen. So the morning I got back.
Is that Virginia Beach? Is that where
it's Myrtle Beach. Everybody went to Myrtle
okay.
Beach, And the day I got back, the next morning after I got back, called me. got me out of bed and said, "Man, go out in the woods. They're gonna show you how to run equipment." But I did, and I went. I loved it. It fed into that stage character that I'm a man, because it was the second most dangerous job in the world at the time. So, and it was dangerous, man. I've seen people get crushed by trees. I've seen them get cut. Just asshole to appetite, you know.
Yeah.
Seen guys come out of the woods just holding their guts and stuff. You know, it's not an industry. I loved it.
There's probably true camaraderie in that crew, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a hard job.
It depends. You know, I can remember stories of Dad having to go bail him out of jail. You know, the cops calling that the crew truck was in the ditch running with the saws all in the back of the truck. And, you know, guys around the fire barrel, you know, all of them toted pistols in their pocket. They were drunk. And I remember Dad going and getting coolers of beer and wine, mostly wine, out of the crew van and putting it in his truck and driving away. Just, you know, one guy got shot in the foot out in the woods because, you know, talking about the pistol won't shoot, and the dude shot him in the foot, you know, just stuff like that. But overall, once you got down to your core crew, we were a good crew.
Was there moonshine out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well.
Like homemade liquor?
Yeah. Yeah. There was, you know, I'm from an area, I'm just east of where, like, the moonshine capital of the world is. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there was corn liquor. I mean, I remember down the road from me was a family, a big family, had a dirt floor, and every one of them were locked up one time. There was no one in the family to bail the other ones out because they were all locked up for running moonshine and making corn liquor. Even the grandma.
What was their last name?
The Daniels. The Daniels. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What were they? Daniels with an S or with just a L? The Daniels.
Daniel with the L.
That's my family name.
Is it really?
That's my mom's.
Right. I mean, they were tough as hell.
They're Scots Irish.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my grandma's family name.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they
must be some relation somewhere, right?
Maybe so.
You have to come up. We'll go down and pay them a visit, man. Maybe they're your long lost family. But they used to babysit me and all too. I'd work in the back with them, and you know they were rough bunch, man, rough bunch. But they watched over me.
Any redheads?
Oh hell yeah, they were, man. Calvin, Calvin was crazy as hell. And then they had Tarzan. Like, I don't know what his real name was, but everybody called him Tarzan. He got his head blown off down in Richmond trying to buy cocaine one night. That was the first guy that I'd ever known of to, like, die in the drug game. Like, that was so, like, different than anything I'd ever known.
Did you, at that age that you heard, you were already, I guess, a little older, right, when that happened? Or how young were you when you were
I was late teens when that happened.
So you could put those two things together, like he was down there getting drugs and he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, the deaths were so much more rare than back then.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Than they are now.
Yep. When somebody got busted, that was a big deal. That was somebody got killed, or even if you went down if you were somebody who went down into Richmond to look for something, you were in big trouble, mister, type thing. You know?
Yeah.
You're bad.
Or did you have the stigmatization of drugs as opposed to alcohol where you grew up? Like, alcohol was socially accepted, but drugs were considered something dirty or something different?
My dad drank a lot, so I said I was never going to drink. But weed now, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't associate. I never was a big drinker, just never was. But drugs, I didn't even give it a thought whether it was, like, cocaine was never going to enter my mind or my existence, nor were pills. I didn't even know anything about pills at that time.
So let me ask you this: so you enter the family business, backlogging, you're not going to school. You have a girlfriend?
Well, my first girlfriend, like my girlfriend.
It's a heartbreaker.
Woo, boy, man, we loved each other. And she moved back to West Virginia, southern West Virginia, coal fields. And I can't imagine what my mom really thought, but bless her heart, she said she was going to let me do it. I'm like, when I graduate, I'm moving to West Virginia and going to work in the coal mines. like nobody really like longs to do that. That's not on the goal list of people. I was heartbroken. We broke up. My mom probably breathed a huge sigh of relief when that happened because she knew her son wasn't going to work in the coal mines. But my cousin had gotten married. I was about 19. My cousin had gotten married. He and I were tight. We got in a lot of stuff together. A lot of my storytelling and my comedic nature comes from his influence, I think. And, he got married. Looked like he was having a good time. I'm like, well, shit, I want one of those. Don't give me one of those. So, back in the day when we're all riding around town, passing each other on the streets and all, and cutting the block, next girl I got with, I'm like, shit, I'm going to marry her. I didn't have any idea who she was. She didn't have any idea who I was. She only knew who I thought I was, and who I wanted her to think I was. Got married, but I was 20. That happened. So, not a girlfriend, had a wife.
So what was it? What was the idea in your head of what it was going to look like? Like, how did you see life progressing for you? 20 years old, get married. What's that going to look like for you?
I had no clue. I just figured that I was going to be on a piece of family land, have a wife. I was running the show, my world. I'm the one in charge. I'm the man. Having no idea what a man was, having no idea what a relationship looked like. Sought no guidance from my father, from male role models in my life. Sought no counsel. Just had this idea in my head that popped out of nowhere or came from other beliefs and experiences that I had. And I'm like, this is what it's going to look like. And it was just what I was going to be a logger and cut timber, just like all the other loggers in the area.
What are the hours of that job? What's it like?
It depends, from before light until, after dark. I mean, I've cut timber at night, with the lights of the machine, loaded wood. But, it's now in the logging industry, you never worked past. You couldn't hold them in there with a shotgun past 11 o'clock on Friday. You always got off early on Friday. Every crew,
Did you get paid every Friday?
Yeah. It didn't matter if it rained Monday through Thursday, you were getting off at 11 o'clock on Friday. I mean, you couldn't hold a male with a shotgun. Yeah. No, you never started a new job on Friday either. Like if we finished up a track of timber, we had to move the equipment in on Thursday night, or we had to do it Monday morning. Yeah. We never started a new track on Friday. That was superstition. That was just the way we did.
You might not have been able to hold them there with a shotgun, but you probably could have held them there with a paycheck.
Yeah, but they were going. They were getting those checks, man. And then on Saturday morning,
mutiny.
I remember my dad walking down the hall. That's how I woke up many a Saturday morning. My dad walking down the hall, going, "Get the hell off my porch! I just paid y'all on Friday. I just paid y'all yesterday. You're trying to borrow money today. Get the hell out of here."
Yeah,
I remember that.
They were trying to borrow against their next paycheck.
Yeah.
I know that. That's called crack cocaine.
Yeah. Well, this is before crack. Well, I don't know if it was before crack. No, it was just they were alcoholics, man.
I know there's not too many things you can do in one night though that'll liquidate a paycheck. Gambling.
They gamble. They'd go to the hole in the wall. Because there was a bunch of hole in the walls around there. These little gambling houses and stuff. These little sheds and all, and they would do that. And the women take your money when they're drunk. Yeah. Just all that going on.
Yeah. And so this is, and you're married though, so you're not partaking in the same. You're kind of keeping it close to the vest. Are you still going out with the guys? Or are you?
I had a group that I ran with. They would really come over to my house. We'd hang out at my house.
You cook and stuff like that.
They would, I wasn't much of a cook at that point. Basically hunting. They would drink, I would drink moonshine when I got it, but I didn't like beer and I didn't like whiskey too much, but I smoked the hell out of weed, I was a weed connoisseur. So do a little blow. Blow came into the mix at that point.
There's the marijuana, like in being out in nature, there's just something about that, growing up in a small town, being able to go smoke and then be in the middle of
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Smoking at work. I mean,
Nothing to do.
at work, my cousin was working. He was running the tree cutter at that time on the crew, and I'd go down and get him, and we'd shut the machine off and go down by the creek before we cut the timber, right? So we go to where we hadn't cut, sit on behind a tree, man, smoke a big fat doobie, go back to work. I was just
Try not to cut your hand off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, when do you feel like things got out of hand for you? I mean, I can feel it unraveling because a lot of pretending to be somebody that you're not, to live the American dream. Tough guy. You're not really that person. So, was there a drug that got introduced to you along the way that kind of took you? Like, when did you begin to go from kind of like an everyday hardworking guy who's trying to make it in the world to smoking weed? Not to say that weed's not the damaging beginning that it was, but where did you begin to feel like you were losing yourself to drugs or alcohol?
The day I tried cocaine. The day I was introduced to cocaine.
Who did it and where was it?
I was cutting a piece of timber, a huge piece of timber for this timber company. And there was a hunt club down there. I'd been introduced to a couple of the guys while I was in there cutting the timber. And, they knew I smoked. They asked me if I wanted to do a bump. I said, sure, why not? I'll try that. Fuck it. And I did the bump, did another one, bought a half gram from them, took it home once I left the woods that day. And I knew that when I did that, like I'd crossed the line. I had done something that I'd started crossing these lines. I said I'd never get high in the woods or at work. And I started doing that. Then I said, well, I'll never get high in the morning before I go to work. And I started doing that. And I knew when I did that coke, I said, I've crossed the line here, a major line. Because there was some family tradition to the occupation that I was in. There was other family members, cousins. I mean, across the family was sawmills, logging crews, things of that nature, and they were respected. And I knew that I had really let probably the family legacy down. Definitely let myself down. And if my dad had ever caught a wind of it, a whiff of it, I knew I would have destroyed him.
So
but I went home with a half a gram in my cigarette pack. My wife at the time had never done this before. I sat down on the sofa, and she came, sat in my lap, pulled my cigarette pack out, looked in there, and it was a half gram of coke. First time she caught me.
What'd she say? What was her reaction?
And she was shocked. She was nervous, but she was an excellent codependent too. And she was up for trying things. She came to the table with her own history, her own experiences, her own traumas, her own abuses. She tried it, and that was the end of us. Well, I can't say that was the end of us because I never took one vow of our marriage seriously from the moment I married her. I never did. So my whole existence that saw me from the outside was fake. I've loved history. I grew up with reading about history, and history is really rich in my area of the state, in my area of the country. And there were generals that I looked up to from the Civil War, and hear about honor, you hear about integrity, you hear about being a man of honor and words. And I wanted to be that. I would present a stage character that I was that, but I wasn't. It's fake. Just fake. And it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. Then pills, then crack cocaine. Then when crack cocaine came, it just unraveled very quickly. I said that I was addicted. I had addict behavior long before I ever picked up the first use, right? And I can sit and tell my story and say I first started using at 12 years old. But I didn't unravel until I was about 28 and I had my first son. I sobered up at 36. There was a good, 8 years where it was like, there were times there's years in those 8 years. There's a couple that I don't remember anything.
Right.
Like there's no I knew I lived in this condo down on the eastern part of Virginia. I have no idea when. I have no idea why. I have no idea what time frame. I have no idea. I knew it was in the year 2007. That's it. I don't know where my kids were. I don't know where. I don't know where my. I don't know anything. That. And I just remember walking out, leaving all my shit there, and that was it. Just walked out.
And that was during basically crack year.
Yeah, crack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just trying to get away from crack cocaine, man. I was trying to just, I just knew, as many people do, that my home area was the problem. And if I just got away from there, I'd be all right. But
What would you say is honestly, the most heartbreaking day experience? Like what you saw at the hands of crack? Like what are the things you did betrayed your soul out there on crack cocaine?
man, there's so many. Like it's like that existence was like, man, like I took my kid. I was in a tractor trailer, the low boy behind it, and I took he was 6. I took him downtown Richmond off 2nd Avenue, Highland Park, 2 a.m, so I could pick up crack cocaine. The drug dealer there said, man, don't bring your fucking kid down here. What are you doing? Bad shit happens here. Fuck out of here. One of the experiences that was prolonged was watching crack cocaine did to my wife. She's no longer my wife. Separate women killed each other, right? But like watching that experience, watching it happen, and I have to take some ownership of it. That's I have to have compassion for her. I get to. It's like, look, at the end of the day, like, it's her journey, right? But I didn't help that journey at all. Help it at all. So people like question me, like, dude, why are you paying for a sober living? Why are you? Because there's a debt to pay. Debt to pay.
That's a soul contract, right?
Yeah.
You feel that within.
Yeah, and it causes some problems. You know, whenever that comes up, it causes some problems in some other relationships. But I have that deal. I have to.
So you know, or you feel it's paid. I don't know.
And I don't know when that'll be.
But maybe you'll know when you know.
Now, that doesn't mean that every time she would come and say, hey, I need to go to sober living, will you do it? No, I use some discernment. But, you know, like, if I feel movement in my soul, I don't care what anyone. I have a duty to.
Where you talk about being lost in that, what was your best hope for did you have a feeling that you would ever get out of it? Did you have a resignment that you were going to die this way? Did you have there any flame of hope at all? Or was there just, can you kind of give me an idea, like, as you're in this cycle, like, what was it like did you ever think there was going to be a comeback story? What was going to ever stop it? Did you ever dream of stopping? Like, tell me, what was it like in your heart? Like, what were you telling yourself?
Every day I woke up, I wanted to stop it. Every day I woke up, I said, man, I'm not going to smoke crack today. I'm not doing this today. And I was eating pills at this time. Like, I didn't care what happened in the woods, what was going on at work. Like, I had to have pills before I could even get out of bed. If I didn't have pills, I didn't care who needed to be paid or what. I had to.
For these pain pills?
Pain pills, not be dope sick. And on top of that, it was like every day I didn't want to do it. But I saw no way. I just thought maybe I knew something was going to happen. I didn't have any idea what that was. I could be killed, you know, because I was robbing dealers and shit, you know, like I knew those woods. I knew those back roads. I'd cut most of the timber, thin most of the timber in the county, surrounding counties. Like, I knew that like a rabbit knows the backyard. And, you know, I would rob them, you know, like I knew that like something was gonna happen. And I was almost like, it's hard to put words on how you feel at that point. It's such a feeling of lost that it's hard to put words to that feeling. You know what I mean? It's like, and the whole thing was, man, I knew I was created to be better than with this. I knew that there was a purpose for me. I knew that wasn't it, but I'm like, fuck it. It just got to where it's fuck it. Fuck it. I don't care. So full of shame already and so full of guilt that I don't care what the whole town talks about. I don't care. Good.
Who was the first person you told about being molested?
I was 36. I was in treatment. My last treatment center. The one where I transformed my life. The fucking fifth step. Yeah. Cause I was resentful, but it didn't really show up towards the person that did it. But it dominated my life. Every belief, every action, every thought, every interaction I had with somebody, that was behind it. And like I put it on paper, man, and like resentment, yeah, it's justifiable resentment, man. Somebody messed with you and took your childhood. But like my role in that is I let it fucking own me for all this time. I let it dominate me. So now, like, I just shared it on the pie, I share it on everywhere I go. But the first time I did it, I was in treatment, the last treatment center I went to. All the other previous treatment centers, much ego. No way that was going to come out. And somebody had shared it with me. I heard other people talking about their experiences and their story.
But it still wasn't going to leave you.
No, in that it's in the last program I was in, because I was in there for so long. I was in treatment for almost a year. And I was just watching people around me heal. I was watching them become vulnerable. And so I'm like, shit, man. Here's my baggage.
They created a safe enough space for
Yeah.
where you could let it go.
Yeah. Camaraderie. Huh?
Yeah. What did your mind tell you if you said that? What would happen? What did your mind tell you up till that point?
That people would run away, flee, and I would flee from.
Did you find that the stage character that you played from that? I guess you said one of the messages that came to you was you had to be tougher than you were. A real man would have never let this happen.
Yeah.
How did that? Were you still carrying on that stage character? Had that stage character been destroyed through the hopelessness and powerlessness of drug addiction? Gotten you to that point. How did you, when you entered the doors of that last treatment center, how would you say your state was? How were you showing up? Like, what stage character showed up that place?
Rebel.
Yeah.
Rebel.
Were you easy,
tough guy.
Easy client, or no? Were you
I was
antagonistic?
No, I was. I tried to get along with everybody. I had some wits about me. I had some home training. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what type of addict you are, or what type of alcoholic you are, or what drugs you do or don't do. There is absolutely no excuse for poor manners. I don't care what you are, or what you did. So I'm grateful that I've had some home training. So I was polite in the program. I was compliant to a large part. But I tried to play this tough guy. I went in there with that stage character. Tough guy. Not, I was soft-hearted. I would own that. But I was, had the mullet, wearing boots. I was a logger. I was complete stage character.
Was there any rehab romances?
Hell yeah. Every single one I went to. Every one I went to, man, you took drugs and alcohol away from me. I wanted the opposite sex to make me feel better. Because, man, it always did. It always did. I didn't like being single. I had to have a sidekick. But I had to have a sidekick that went along with me, right? And my selfishness and self-centeredness. But yeah, man, I had rehab romances everywhere I went, and even this last place, but they fixed that. They put me on a no female contact contract for 7 months that I was in there. Well, 7 of the 12 months that I was in there, I couldn't talk to the ladies. If I went to an outside meeting and there was she could have come in on a walker wearing Depends with a caregiver on each side of her. If she would have sat down beside me, I'd have had to get up and move. I was like stranger danger, man. That's what they did to me. They're like, no contact, no talking. Best thing that happened to me because I was stuck with me, which drove some desperation to want to, like, what the fuck? This isn't about drugs and drinking. This isn't about cocaine. This isn't about it. Crack. I feel worse without this shit in my system than I did with it. This is like, I'm getting ready to boil over here. So
It can be a pressure cooker for sure.
Man, then you pop. Like that breaking point, where I bolted. I'm like, I'm out. See y'all. I'll go back to prison, or I'll go to prison. That was my choice before I came to treatment. Was either go to treatment, follow directions, or go to prison today. Which one you want to do? Like they had an interventionist family, had enough of me. Like they had enough, and so I was like, fuck it, I'll go back to prison. I mean, I'll go to prison. I'd been to jail a few times, but I'll go to prison.
And why was that the better option than?
Because I knew that. I knew that space. I knew. Really, it was just my head telling me, just trying anything to get me out of the door. So then once I got out of the door and got back into my little comfort zone, that it could then show me cocaine or weed or pills, then I'd go right back.
Also, earlier you'd mentioned the kind of belief system. It's better to give up than to try and fail.
Yeah.
Bet that was running in the background in the operating system of the subconscious.
Yeah, I bet, man. I mean, dude, you're sitting here with you, man. You're like a healer, man. I mean, I'll call you the healer. I mean, you're the healer. Like, man, I'm digging this because I know you're sitting there going to tell me some truth and some insight into my journey. I love sitting here doing it.
Where did you? Me too. Where did you find, like when you were in that treatment center, there had to be some aspect of the work that you were doing that was bringing you closer to some type of spiritual connection. Was something like that happened to you? What had been your, like from childhood to up to that point, your journey with a power greater than yourself, however you see that? What was that like for you? Were you developing something, or was it still kind of going through the motion?
Man, I went to church some when I was a kid. I don't remember any of the sermons. I didn't doubt the existence of God. I just thought that God put everything here and that it was up to me to manage it. And thy will be done. I'd heard that all my life. I didn't even know what the hell that meant until I sobered up. I had no idea what it meant. I just thought it'll be done. Like I didn't know it was your will be done, sir, not mine. I had a hard time believing a lot of the shit that I was hearing about religion. I had a hard time wrapping my head around that stuff. And I thought, sure, it works for some people. I don't disbelieve, but it's not my thing. And the pain that I was going through, the emotional pain and that pressure cooker happening and watching other people suggested I hit my knees in prayer. I'm like, shit, jeez. But I had an outside guy. I was required to get a sponsor. And he had no axes to grind. He wasn't on the payroll of the treatment program. He was taking time out of his life to come in and meet with me for an hour or 2 hours. And it looked like, and he smoked crack like I did. And he had his life together. And he didn't order me to do anything. Just hearing him and watching him says something to this. And he said, I came to my own by hitting my knees. Like it was suggested that I hit my knees, and I would hit my knees. I was taking the action, not really understanding it or not having a whole lot of heart in it, but I started taking the action. And like I had expectations on how those prayers were supposed to be answered. When I walked out of treatment, I truly believe this to this day that God, they took my driver's license when I got to treatment. So I was going to the airport to rent a car and drive home. I had manipulated my wife to come get me. And she handed me a picture of my two boys, man. And they were laying in the bed, snuggled up together. And like it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. It just hit me like this shit ain't about you anymore. Like that did not come from me. That didn't originate in me. Like that picture was like everything in that moment happened by divine intervention.
How old were they?
7 and 2, and I said, I got to go back. Like my wife's jaw dropped. I'm like, what? Like, I got to go back. And that was my surrender. Like, done fighting. Whatever, man. Whatever. Just whatever y'all want me to do. I'm down. I went back and had an experience. I was 2 months sober before I surrendered. Before I had a shift. It was a huge shift. Huge shift. Like my whole world became brand new. It was literally like putting on a new pair of glasses. And for the first time since I first smoked that joint at 12 years old, from 12 years old until 36, I never experienced the sense of being free in between those two times. When I was 12, when I was 36, and I gave up and surrendered. And my sponsor said, you're going to let God handle your business, and what he does with your business is none of your business. It's whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
I think what I thought about when you said that you saw the picture of your sons is they're younger than you when you experienced the molestation. 7 and 2, you said?
Right.
And that feeling of you had to be there for them.
I don't know if it was that deep. It should have been something down in there, like I just knew that they deserve better than this piece of shit behaving individual. I knew I wasn't a piece of shit, but I was behaving like a piece of shit. And I knew that they deserved better than that.
What did your effort look like after that?
Whatever somebody asked me to do.
You say 100%?
100%. 100%. 100%. And like follow directions, hold people accountable, be held accountable, seeking. My effort in seeking God was 100%. Because the C part of the literature says God could and would if he were sought. Doesn't say if he was understood, say if he was known or any of that. It just was in the seeking. I sought God. I looked for God in everything. Every day. When I woke up, after I had that experience, I got addicted to that. Like I wanted to see God in everything that was going on. Everything. And man, like the longer I go on in sobriety, like, 15 years into this deal, I feel like I'm seeking, but I don't feel like I'm seeing. Even when I see it, because it's so new to me then. It was so new and fresh and like amazing to like know that God has his hand in this. And that God delivered me from this shit because nothing else could. Nothing. I tried everything. Pharmaceuticals, clinicians, judges, jails, kids, wife, mom, work, oil fields, working in the oil fields, not the oil fields, offshore. I did everything to get away from cocaine except what I needed to do. Like nothing else worked. Nothing. Except, man, once I gave up, like it came in.
And you hadn't given up before treatment, right? You gave up in treatment.
I gave up in treatment, yeah.
So there's always a narrative, and I talk to a lot of families that you can speak to this, but that they've got to want it. And it has to be for them or else it's not going to work. And so they stand on the precipice of sending their loved one to treatment, but they're like, this may be a waste of money because he's not taking it seriously or she's not taking it seriously, or I'm not so sure that they're ready or they're done yet. The family makes a determination on that based on the actions of the person who's struggling at that point because it's so hard and they think, oh, there's no way it's going to work, right? You see that every day, right?
Yeah.
But then you also see the miracle of people changing once they get taken off the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
You know, I had it explained to me once that a cave can be covered in darkness for 5 million years, and then all of a sudden you can roll one stone away and a light will dispel 5 million years of darkness like that.
Right.
And that can happen.
Yeah.
That happened for you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everything made sense, and you saw that moment.
Yeah. I was not the educational variety. It was a powerful, burning bush peace.
Sometimes God has to scream at certain people.
Boy, does he. Yeah.
So with this newfound power and energy running through you, how did it start, and how did it manifest into where you're moving today? Like, you had quite a few changes that probably happened in there. I know marriage at some point had to stop. New things come about. How did it unravel?
Man, a lot of changes had to be made immediately. And I hear, and I really don't know where this comes from, because I myself haven't read it in any literature anywhere except in some pamphlets maybe, but they say don't make any major decisions your first year of sobriety. And like, I had to make some major decisions. Like, I did. Like, and I was led by, this newfound power that was coming to my life, required it. Like, it demanded it. Like, this has to happen. So understanding that the relationship, the marriage was extremely toxic and unhealthy and not based in good foundation of love and respect and compassion, and that had to end. I had to live in Texas. Like, that was a different thing from where I had lived. I mean, there was no trees. I was a logger. My sponsor was owned some taco shacks. Man, I didn't know shit about tacos. He didn't know shit about logging, but we made it work. Like, it was a different world.
What was his name?
Carlos.
Oh yeah, I know
Carlos. Yeah.
I remember him.
Yeah. And then I got a different sponsor, Oscar. And Oscar was just, man.
Because this is Austin, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. He was something. Yeah. He still is something. I owe my life to him, to both of them. But, a lot of change had to happen. I had to surrender the idea because, man, I told everybody, I said, look, man, my halfway house, my sober living, my halfway house is going to be the Motel 6 in Meridian, Mississippi, because that's halfway between Texas and Virginia, because I ain't doing what y'all want me to do. That was before. Look, man, and even it won't like when I gave up and surrendered and took that third step, man, and made a decision that God's going to handle my business, and what he does in my business, none of my business. It doesn't mean that I went levitating down the hallway. Yeah. Now, I still had a lot of me in me. Yeah. And I rose to the surface several times. Like, I walked out of treatment 2 weeks shy. I left AMA 2 weeks shy of a year. I mean, that floored everyone. Like, my family wouldn't talk to me. Like, the clinicians were freaking out. They were notifying. I left on a Sunday because I knew my probation officer wasn't in the office. I knew I could at least get to a sober living. I'd arranged sober living in Austin because I knew that they wanted to send me. This self-will run riot, man. I get it. Like, sometimes God uses our self-will to get where we need to go. I truly believe that. I had an experience that showed me, like, they wanted me to go to Dallas for phase 2. I'm like, man, I've got a network of support here in Austin. I like Austin. Like, that was genuine. That was legit. The selfishness in me was that there was this woman at one of the meetings, and she was a little bit older than I was, and she was hot.
Certainly
and
wiser.
She was she was a professional. I'm like, man, that's so far out of my freaking league. Like, and she was showing interest in me. I'm like, ain't no fucking way I'm going to Dallas, man. I'm staying right here in Austin. Yeah. So I went and got a sober living. And I don't know how much wiser she was than me, because she ended up staying at the sober house with me. It's one of those sober houses,
Yeah.
sleeping on the couch of a sober house. She was sniffing the farts out of the sober house cushions, and damn. Looking back on that. But anyway, yeah, it's that was Self-Will Run Riot, but it was where I was supposed to be because that's where I started working in treatment.
So you started working in treatment. How long had you been sober when you started working in treatment?
14 months.
14 months. You started kind of as a tech?
Yeah, overnight tech, man.
Yeah.
At the Arbor, a place called the Arbor. He had just opened, and he gave me a shot when he didn't have to.
Yeah.
He wrote I read all the manuals. I went through the trainings. I did all of that, watched all the videos. But my shift, when I came on, was like 4 people in the program. They had just opened.
Yeah.
And I walked in for my 11. I did the 11 to 7, the overnight shift, easiest shift, right? Rolled in there, and he had written some instructions on a yellow notepad. And the woman that I was relieving, she said, "Here you go. See you later." And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm responsible for these people. Oh, my God. Now what? But I loved it, man. I loved it. I love that type of work. Don't you?
It's not like logging, right?
No, man. No. I had my keys and a lanyard. Walk around down the hallway checking rooms, waking them up in the morning. All right, y'all get up. Y'all get up. Prayer, meditation. Come on. Let's go. No.
Starting to see the lights turn on.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Everybody except one person that was in that crew. And it got up to about, 15 people while I worked there. That original, peace crew, all of them but one are sober. And he's dead. It was powerful. We had, they did a lot of 12-step stuff, 12-step immersion, and they had great clinical to go along with it. And that, that's, doesn't, like your program, Augustine Recovery, is you do the same thing, and you dig down to a lot of trauma, and that's where I feel like the best results happen. It's not about shoving AA down their throat. It's like the principles behind the steps, and you hear a lot of shit about it from people out here that have an opinion of an experience they've never had,
Yeah, for sure.
But I've seen a lot of people heal from that model.
How did you get into the field of intervention and kind of taking the show on the road like that? You went from working as a tech, did you continue into other roles in treatment, or did you begin, how did you get the idea and the wherewithal to follow it towards intervention?
Well, man, the first time that I thought about being an interventionist, I was on my way to treatment with the interventionist that intervened on me. I'm like, oh, I do what he does one day.
And that was John, right?
John Southworth. Yep. Dinosaur in this industry. Everybody, mad respect for that man.
Yeah.
But everybody says that. A lot of people I intervene on have said that. And a lot of people I've intervened on have gone on to become interventionists and great interventionists. But that was the first place I said that. But, I was moving back to Virginia. I had 2 boys. The ex-wife at that time had, she was struggling bad. Like crack cocaine was coming in full force, and all the shit that you do to maintain that was coming hard. I had to go home and be a father. It was time, man. I'd spent a year in inpatient almost, and then a year outside living in Austin, grounding and building on the foundation. It was time to go, man. I knew it, and there weren't a lot of treatment centers in Virginia at that time, and none that I had grown accustomed to. And I didn't want to work for some shit, right? Because I knew that there was a solution, and I knew what the solution didn't look like. Like I had experienced all of those places where it was just watered down, middle of the road shit. And I swore I'd never work for one of those. So my colleague, Matt Brown, was working at his admissions, and he's like, man, you'd be a good intervention. Because they had let me start doing some family stuff. I started running groups for the clients, and I was good at it. Like, so the more I did, the more they let me do. Now, my ego thought that I should be running the place, and I was a pain in the ass to the ownership, I'm sure, but he said, man, you should be an interventionist. So I went and got trained. I moved home. I wasn't going to work in any treatment center around there, and I went and got trained and moved home and had me a little $100 laptop that I'd bought from my old roommate. Opened up the laptop, got my certificate that I was trained and ready. Hung out my little shingle, waiting on the phone to ring. My daddy would walk, because I didn't have anywhere to live when I moved back home. I mean, I was 2 years sober. But so I was hanging out. I was stayed at the river house. But that wasn't my house. It was the family house. And I'd hang out at my dad's house, and he'd walk in, and he's used to people working. Like, he's used to, like,
Work
you
doesn't
go out.
mean waiting on a phone to ring.
Nope.
Right?
He's like, what you doing, boy? I said, I'm working. He's like, I don't know, man. You're going to have to do something. What you going to have to do something? And I was down to my last $100 that I had in savings, and I got my first intervention. Then one right behind that, one right behind that. So, and that's how I got started. And I only a couple interventionists in Virginia. I've enjoyed the ride. Difficult.
Can you tell me what is the most challenging thing for those people that want to become interventionists or think that that's the path they want to do? Because it is a very popular path for people that are newly alive and sober and excited about wanting to help other people. What would you say is the hidden part of it, or the part that you didn't know that existed when you started doing it? What would you say is like one of the hardest pieces about doing that line of work?
Right now, in today's time, it's saturated. There's a lot of people that are doing it. Some people that probably shouldn't be doing it, but it's a lot of people doing it. And the silence, like with everyone out here struggling, and you hear it in the news, you see it on social media, the numbers of people that are out here struggling, you think that there's a lot of people out here that I need to help, that I'll be able to help. I'll be busy all the time. It doesn't work that way. You got to have time in. It just takes time in the field. It takes connections, not only just being introduced to people, but when you're first an interventionist and you go to these conferences or you go to a treatment center and you haven't done an intervention, what do you have to show? What do you have to say? That's difficult. Like, how do you just saying you're an intervention? Yeah, you got some training, but you haven't done anything. You got no arrows in your quiver yet. You got no antlers on the wall from your prior engagements. You're like brand new calling yourself a hunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that, and the dead times, man, where it's like you're not just an interventionist. You have to be a business owner. You have to understand how to operate a business. I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. I'd hit a good lick. Next thing you know, man, I got new fishing poles, and then the next thing is 2 months, the phone hadn't rang. There's been times of that. 2 months.
You had to use that fishing pole.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bait, you better dig it up, because we can't buy it. And we're going to eat whatever we catch. If it's a mud cat, whatever, we're eating it. A blow toad, we're going to have to eat it.
Be careful handling that mud cat, right?
Yeah. But it's, it's rewarding, but it's, out of 20 people that call, every one of them needing an intervention, only about 8 are going to book. And it's even less than that in this past year's logs. It's even less than that. But
in the energy of the intervention, what's it like going into an intervention? Like the feeling.
Man, love it. Like it's walking into it, like intervention day. It's like, not to sound like I'm coming from ego or anything, but it is, all right, not coming from ego at all. Like it is a rare time in my life these days where I am absolutely 100% present in the moment. It's like I'm there. Like I know that I'm supposed to be there. I'm honed in. I'm good at what I do. Let's play ball. Let's go. Walk like I'm listening. I don't eat before an intervention. Walking in is, and I don't care how many I do, walking in, there's that unknown. But you don't know. Like but there's always the unknowns of things that could happen. So there's adrenaline. As I said earlier, man, the best way I can describe this is that it's someone, I studied a lot of history. And back during the Civil War, soldiers, before they went into battle, they didn't say much. A lot of them had a hard time swallowing. Their hands were clammy. They would be fumbling with things. They would be shaking. They would be praying. They would sense or have a level of anxiety that they'd never experienced before, where they couldn't talk. But the moment they fired that rifle, the moment after they took the first shot, they became as calm as if they were shooting at squirrels. That's how I experienced interventions. I don't get as nervous as I used to, but there's still a little unknown, right? The moment I walk in and the first words are spoken, and that's how the families are too. The moment someone's first starting to read their letter, calmness comes over. Just like those guys on the front line, man, that fired that shot. Yep.
It's happening, really happening.
Yep.
All this pain and all this misery and all this anxiety and antagonization that happens before something like this, and then they're all there.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. Like you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in it. It's going. It's moving.
I don't think people understand, or people that have been through it do, but things are never the same after that. Because you've stood up, a family has actually stood up, taken a stand and saying, this, as it's been going, we're never going to do this again. It's not going to be the same again. And I don't believe it's ever the same after that. You get to see people from that point of desperation and resignation and fear when they call you, to meeting with them, to planning, to actually executing the intervention, getting them to whatever level of care that you guys have agreed to is the right thing for them, and then following them through with them after treatment, whatever that may be, helping that family along, and being a resource and basically a de facto family member with all these people that you touched.
I mean, man, when you think about it, what you just described about how powerful that event is, how they'll never forget it. It changes the course of their lives. As the interventionist, like, it blows me away, really, that I'm a part of that. And that's a hell of a responsibility too, because you're making some decisions as the professional that impacts their lives from that moment forward. And it's a duty that needs to be taken very seriously. And that's why I believe that when I am not spiritually in a place or emotionally in a place where the universe feels like I can be of service, my phones don't ring. And I can always tie it back to, and every single time I'm going to put it on. I'm not marketing enough. I'm not doing this enough. What am I doing? What's going on? And I'll get angry at the field. I'll get angry at the people. They're not sending to me. But every time, over 14 years of doing this, every time it's like that, it's because something's going on within me. And I think that families are being protected, and I'm being protected. So I'm looking at the phones not ringing as a horrible thing. It's just the way the universe is working. I truly believe that. But when I'm on, those phones ring. Like, it's an honor to be able to be asked into a family, to help them out and roll an intervention. And man, being a part of that, being able to experience that, being able to sit in that room and watch this wave of empowerment come over this family. And it grows and it grows and it grows. And unlike a wave on the ocean coming towards the seashore, it doesn't crash. It just builds, and you feel this family become more empowered as the event unfolds. And then their loved one feels it too. Because if I can feel it and I have no emotional attachment to them, I know their loved one feels it. And they're like, all right, man, yeah, okay, I want to be a part of this. Or I give up. Oftentimes I want to be a part of that. That's what the addicted individual is really saying. It says, I want to be part of that empowerment that I'm feeling from my family. And they just become this unstoppable force. And for me to be able to be a part of that blows me away, blows my mind. I'm a crackhead. I'm a crackhead logger that did everything in my power to never be able to sit in that chair. Never. Here I am. Fucking crazy.
That journey between taking and losing everything to being able to get back to it, pretty amazing. That's a gift. When you say you're a crackhead logger, does that give you any, does it make you feel bad at all?
No, it's just what it was. It is what it is. It's what I was. You're not going to hurt my, man, I was a fucking addict. I was a thief. I was inconsiderate. I was a shitty father. I was a menace to society. I was a crackhead. I was what I was. And if I hadn't have been all of that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be able to experience what it's like to be at peace, to know what my purpose is. I didn't see that coming. I didn't know that was going to be a gift of sobriety. I thought it was just some word games that they were playing, like, hey, find your purpose, primary purpose. Like, fucking, I didn't know. I didn't know that I was going to feel comfortable and clearly understand what my purpose is. That's huge. So many people around here that never touched anything were wandering around here having no idea what their purpose is. They're 60 years old still trying to find it. Man, that shit was battle hardened into me. Through fire and through shrapnel and debris and rubble, right? Like, man, I'm not a guy that's like, oh, you need to tell them substance use disorder. Don't want to upset the delicate genius or the delicate flower. Man, screw that, dude. I was a crackhead. True and true. Yet here I sit. And if I wasn't any of that, I wouldn't be here. And I like being here. I like it.
Well, there's a point in time where that shameful or that stigmatized word or whatever it may be, description of past you, is there any shame behind that now?
Mm-mm.
Where has it moved to? Like an alchemist, we're turning that shame into power.
Mm-hmm. I mean, where's my shame now?
Yeah, you're not. From what I can feel from you in this moment, there is no shame attached with your past.
My shame that's attached to the past is not around smoking crack or the shit that I did while I was smoking crack. It's not about chasing the guy with the chainsaw and embarrassing my family and shit like that. Since losing my father and being in charge of the estate now and power of attorney over my mom, being the patriarch of the family, I have regrets that have surfaced. And this has just been in the past year of understanding how much my dad had to do, how much was involved in managing their affairs, and that I didn't help. I was another thing that he had to freaking worry about and deal with. And I could have been a shit ton more helpful to him. And having my mom become ill and losing my dad, I wished I would have gotten sober a long time ago. So where my shame comes in now, which I see a retreat coming in my future, like a retreat, like an immersion. I desperately desire to do that. And the only thing that has prevented me from doing it thus far is that taking the time to do it. I'm always too busy. I've always got this, or it's financial, whatever. But where my shame is today, when I go into shame, is how I was a father when I got back home and was a father. I was terrified. I had a new career. I wasn't a father, and now I come home and I have full custody of 2 sons. I was terrified. I really didn't understand what it meant to be in a healthy relationship. Look, man, just because I sober up and do some work doesn't mean I automatically know what a good relationship looks like. I know what a bad one looks like, but I really don't know what a good one looks like. So it's hard for me to tell, am I in a good one or am I, because they don't all start off bad, and so that attaching my wagon to some really toxic mules. I'm trying to call women. I should have said that backwards. Attaching my mule to some really toxic wagons is a more appropriate way to say that. Operating out of fear, having full custody of 2 kids, getting angry, yelling, demanding respect of something I haven't earned yet, not understanding fully what they just went through. I understood it, but I didn't really at a deep level understand the harms. Like, that's where my shame is today. Is what I did in early sobriety trying to be a dad. I have so many regrets, man, in my sobriety of of how I raised my kids. I beat the shit out of myself for that sometimes. And then I end up enabling, trying to overcompensate for it.
That's the hardest thing when you work in this field and you do so much coaching of families, and then in your own life, much easier to give somebody the advice than it is to follow it with your own children.
Yeah.
I know that as a fact myself.
Man, it's tough, and I feel like, I feel like this is the first time I'm sharing this publicly, right, or privately. Like, and like I'm at work and I'm seeing guys heal. I'm seeing people that I work with in the field, along with me, my colleagues that seem to shine and seem to have their shit together. And I've got my shit together, but nowhere where it needs to be. It's progress, but. Like, man, what am I gonna do? I mean, and it's like I'm going to someone else's store, helping them shine the floor and stock the shelves and put everything right and put the signage where it needs to be. And my own store looks like shit sometimes. And the hard thing that I didn't see coming is, man, no matter what I've got going on in my life, I remember one time this relationship that we had a home together. We would get married. And like, she was there with my kids, and it went south due to both of us. Like, I had a lot of ownership in that. And I remember, man, like, tail lights, like a country song. I had a long driveway. Them tail lights were headed out of that driveway, and I'm sitting there sobbing, looking like I was a big man at this point. I was 230 pounds. Sitting around looking like 230 pounds of chewed bubble gum with tears coming out of my eyes, and the phone rings with a family in crisis. And I have to shut all of that off and put all of my attention into that family. That's tough. That's tough. You know what I'm talking about on that? It's tough. It's brutal. And everybody says it. I'm available 24/7, man. You need some boundaries. You need some boundaries. Noble, but it's not healthy.
And that's part of we talk about when we're out there, we lend part of our souls out, we barter them, trade them. But we also do that in this healing journey too, because it's not always when we're on a winning streak or when everything's happening. Everyone's life's happening simultaneously with ours. We might be up here and somebody else is down here. We might both be down at the same time, or one of us, one or the other. But that divine appointment we talked about, sometimes you make it through. But yeah, absolutely. At some point, we're going to have to pay the piper, right? We're going to have to go back and do the work. All that stuff accumulates over time. I've experienced it in my own life, and when it all comes crashing down, you hope that you put enough good in that you'll weather that storm. I always think about it like I had some things happen to me where I felt like in surfing, when you surf the big waves, you can be out in the water waiting for them, but you can get caught too far inside because the waves come at a certain cadence. They come in sets and get used to what's happening, but then all of a sudden kind of a rogue set or a cleanup set, what they call it, comes. And if you're too far inside, those waves start to crash further out. And if you're too far inside and you don't make it over the top, you've probably seen videos where guys paddle to get over the wave right before it comes down. But if you're stuck on inside of that wave comes and crashes on top of you, and then there might be 4, 6, 10, 12 waves
coming right behind
that set, coming right behind it. They're pounding on you, and you wonder if you're going to live through it. sometimes it washes you in. Some people, I've been out there with 30 guys surfing, and that set comes through, and I paddle back out finally when it's all over, and there's 2 of us. 28 guys went in, tucked in, and said, "That's it. I've surfed enough today, or I got enough from it. I'm not paddling back through that."
Right.
There's been cleanup sets that have come in my life where I wasn't quite prepared. Felt like I wasn't quite in the right spot. They came and washed me away, and it took everything, God, me, every bit of energy that I've had. I'm sure that we've had these kind of conversations, both helped each other along the way through the years.
Mm-hmm.
Different times where I've called you in a point of panic, and you called me in points of low panic as well, and we both talked each other through those. I appreciate times.
I appreciate those times. They're real. They're real. That's what this thing's about. I think I had no idea what a real man was. I have an idea what a real man is now. It's like being able to be authentic, to be able to say, "Hey, man, got some shit going on." Be able to sit in front of a camera, not give a shit who watches it. Speak your truth. I appreciate this.
Anything you want to leave people that are going to see this with?
If you're out here struggling, there's going to come a point where you're going to wish you got sober a whole lot sooner than you did if you do. If you're going to do this thing, man, if you're going to do it, you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. One thing I can say is the greatest gifts that came out of this work and this chaos, work that came after it, was that my father left this world, nothing left unsaid between them. That's huge to me. Because I didn't see that coming years ago. So it's not about what's going on today. It's what's coming down the pike years from now. Chad sober, man. Transform your life. Nobody's got time for this shit. No.
Precious.
Thanks for having me, man. Let's do it again.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching today, spending this time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe. This is what you like. You want to subscribe. And look for more content to come from us soon. Thank you.
It's a wrap.